Hello, I'm Carl Stabe, and today I have Joanna Wiebe with me. She's the author of The Copy Selling System. Thank you so much for being here. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for inviting me. This is fun.
Yes, yes. I think
Yeah.
it's really important for people when they are thinking about copywriting. I think not a lot of people think about it as something that they need to integrate into the systems
Mm,
that they have as a company.
yeah.
Because it's, hey, we got to create this email, but it's much larger than that. And I'm curious of your thoughts around, okay, yeah, we need to create a great email. We need to create great Facebook ads, whatever it is. But how does that all tie into the larger picture?
Yeah, that is the biggest question. And it's a great question because not enough people ask it. There's this weird sort of assumption, and I think it's true if you haven't worked in a thing, you may find yourself just defaulting to like minimizing it to okay, it can't be that complicated, especially if it's landed on your plate. So you don't have training in copywriting, you don't have maybe even a marketing background, and here you are, a small business owner, startup founder, whoever it is, you're suddenly tasked with writing the thing, writing the email. Well, it can't be that hard or it wouldn't land on my plate, right? I wouldn't need specialized skills to do this thing. It's not like coding an app where clearly I would need to hire someone for that. Clearly, I would need specialized skills for that. I can just guess at this, and that's the greatest myth I would argue is that you can just guess at it. Once you do, then you go, oh. This stuff doesn't work at all. Everybody says email works, but I wrote one and it didn't work. Like, yeah, well, because oftentimes what people do, and I say this with love because I have worked with so many businesses and creative teams, but there's a lot of just jumping to, okay, we got to get in, like you said, we got to write an email. Okay, well, what's the goal of the email? It's to get people to click through to the landing page. Okay, and then it just kind of like stops there. Like, okay, well, if our job is to get them to click through, and we're going to send an email, we just have to make them do that. And that's like largely the beginning and the end of the conversation. Then you sit there and you stare at the page. And today, instead of staring at the page, you go to ChatGPT, or if you know better, you go to Claude, and you just tell it that I need someone to go to this landing page. So you copy paste the copy from the landing page, which was also guessed at. You drop it into ChatGPT and say, now write me an email. And without it asking you much more about the audience, the goal, what your differentiators are, what your brand voice is, how you want to sound, what the hook should be, what are people doing when they get this email? Where are they sitting? What's going on in their lives that they should interrupt their lives to read this email? It's not going to ask you any of those things, and you're not going to know to prompt it on any of those things. And I love AI to support people when they're writing copy, by the way. The problem is that copywriting requires that you have first done many things beforehand to get
Mm.
ready for the copywriting. And I don't mean reading novels and getting good at like writing. That's the last part of the copywriting process is how does it sound? Can we make it punchier? That's the very last stage of editing. It's not even early editing. So when you think of the whole system that gets you toward a place where you have an email, it's there's a lot there, and how it sounds in the email, that's the last step. So our job is to back up, figure out, of course, basic business goals for the email so that we know how to measure it, what to focus on, etc. And largely the bigger question is, what is our message? What is the message that our audience needs to hear right now? And I don't mean all of them. So you also have to get into the question of who's reading your email, who is email for versus who is a Facebook ad for. Someone very different or someone very similar to the email reader versus an Instagram reel that you have to do. You have no choice. You're in business. You have to do an Instagram reel. What's that about? Do I wing that? No. So there's all of this stuff there to think about before you actually get into how do I write this email?
So what I'm hearing is a lot of people, there are, let's just say, for example, 10 steps. A lot of people maybe only focus on 2 to 3 steps
At
and don't
best.
really think through that whole process.
Yeah, because as soon as I say that, they tune out. It's like, oh, it's work, forget it. But this is how you build a customer. So if you were to build a product, you would need to, like, let's talk about, so I work with tech companies a lot, and they have to build an app, and then they have to build AI now into that app. So they would never just like throw a bunch of code at it and go like, oh, this is really hard. Just forget it. Like you wouldn't, you know, it's going to take some work. Now we're building a customer, and that's what marketing is on repeat. If we can think of it that way, and that's where like the systems side of like my brain operates much better with systems than the chaos of creativity. I get it, but it's suffocating and hard to work through versus a system. So you can
Mm.
put that together and actually start thinking about, okay, how come a developer can sit down and build a product step by step, know what to do, know how to code it, know how to pull those languages together, the different pieces of it, go to libraries and find the right code snippet, pull it in. How come they can do that? And meanwhile, marketing is like, what goes in a Facebook ad? And it's like, guys, let's get it together. We are going to build a customer now. If we challenge ourselves as marketers, which is our job, to build customers on repeat, like an assembly line, if we can challenge ourselves to do that, then we can relieve a lot of the stress and the strain around this doesn't work, that doesn't work, nothing works. Oh, we're not saying anything interesting. Let's just go copy what those guys are doing. Oh, that didn't work either. Let's copy what those guys are doing. Oh, I don't even know if marketing works. Like all of that kind of chaos. Let's get rid of it. And just like, what does it take to move someone from a zero to a one? They are not a customer, and then they are. What happens in the middle there? What do they need to hear? Where do they hear it? That is our challenge as marketers. And it's been really easy to kind of just like act like that's not important. But now that we have AI to relieve so much of the work of what we do, the remainder of the work that's left to do should be harder. It's the harder stuff of figuring out what does that assembly line look like. And so that's, no one wants to hear it's going to be a lot of work, but it is. It's going to be a lot of work, and in the end, you'll know how to make customers on repeat for your business, which is like
Mm.
worthwhile.
Okay. Well, there's so much there. So, what I'm also hearing from a systems perspective is understand, okay, if we want to do A to Z and Z is getting the customer, getting them to actually buy, we have to understand who they are and
Mhm.
then start to build systems around it. And I think what you're also saying is marketers need to think of this as more from an engineering perspective, kind of using that. I think it's the left side of the brain that's more engineering. Is it? It's the right side of the brain, right? Isn't the right side?
I don't know. I know
I
that the
always,
best copywriters and marketers are like often I hear from clients and from people I coach who are good at combining these two is, oh, you use both sides of your brain, right? Because you like the systems and the engineering and like let's make it into something and figure things out. And then there's the creativity of like, let's also though, in the end, there will be a final step where you do make it sound better than anything they've heard before. And you tap into, these little creative things that bring this piece to life. But that's again way at the end. But you will be using both sides of your brain. Yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah.
so what you're saying is, okay, if we have some more guardrails around figuring this out, understanding this ideal customer, then we can make better choices versus, okay, let's throw some paint on the canvas and see what actually
Mhm.
looks good.
Yeah, exactly. So those guardrails are exactly it. And this is like so I've spent 20 years doing this. I started as an English major. I had a creative writing background. My first title was creative writer at an agency. I was called creative writer on my business card. Um, I've come from the place of let's start with creativity. And then I've had corporate America go, hold on, we're going to measure every single thing that we do. And we've been measuring your work, that creative stuff, it ain't working. here, let's actually figure out what works. And so I've been involved then in A/B testing, in trying to get, and I don't just mean trying to sell. I mean also trying to stand out, look different, sound different, be different, identify your differentiators, what your unique value is in the market for a certain audience, and message that thing. So that's not going to be very creative. It's not a bunch of creatives sitting around, twirling their fancy mustaches with their little beanies on, one like writing on a glass wall. That's what we think it is. It's not that. It's sitting there and listening to customers and going like, oh crap, they're thinking that at this point on their journey. Oh, they're thinking this at this point on their journey, and mapping things out in a way that really does have these guardrails. So I have seen firsthand that the things that work in business to turn someone from a 0 to a 1, to get them from not customer to a happy paying referring customer, is to have those guardrails, to really walk them through this assembly line. And if they fall off it, you push them back on the assembly line. You don't jump them down to the bottom of it and say like, here we have a great offer for you, but they're way at the beginning of the assembly line where they're not even close to ready for it. So that's the kind of way to think about it. That's how I think about it. That's how I've been paid. I've been compensated for helping businesses to think about it that way. But it really does come down to have guardrails, keep them moving along an assembly line. And that is, I know I'm saying assembly line a lot, and that's because that is the metaphor for me. That is what it is. They're on a line. If they fall off, you got to get them back on at the exact same place, or back them up to the beginning of the assembly line. But most people, when they're writing copy, they're going to jump to things like, I think we just need social proof. I think we just need a really great headline. Where's our testimonial page, or testimonial section? These sorts of things that are like, those are just tactics. We should personalize the email. That's just a tactic. We should segment email. Also a tactic. That's not actually the bones of what's going to turn somebody from a prospect into a happy paying referring customer.
I love that. And I think too often it is easier just to say, hey, let's do this tactic. Let's try that. What I think you're also saying, yes, it is a conveyor belt type of assembly line,
Mhm.
but and maybe I'm reading into the line. So if I'm wrong, let me know. But there are different stops along the way. And what you're saying is once you have this system built out, then you
Mhm.
can say, okay, let's reconfigure this part of the assembly line.
Mhm.
Let's tweak it, let's improve it, and then we'll plug it back in and see what happens versus wait, let's just do everything all over again and see if we can get it right this time.
Exactly. That's exactly it. So, over the years, so there's this thing in old school direct response copywriting, and that can sound like print mailers and stuff. And I don't mean that, although I do, because those work like gangbusters. But I mean, like, so direct response is where all of the best copywriting that we see today is rooted in direct response from the 20s through to the early 80s. And one of the concepts along the way is in direct response, which has kind of boiled over into software and e-commerce and things, but they talk about it a little differently. But it's the stages of awareness. And so there are these 5 stages of awareness. It goes unaware, problem aware, solution aware, product aware, and most aware. Then there's levels of sophistication. That's a whole other thing. Anyway, point is, there are these 5. If you were to say like, okay, there are these points that they have to hit along this conveyor belt, those are the 5 key points. So they start at unaware. Now, for me, unaware isn't on the assembly line yet. They're kind of like outside the door. They're like, kind of roaming around, looking in the window, but they're not on the line yet. The customer starts at problem. So as soon as someone has a problem and is aware of that problem, now they're on the conveyor belt. So they drop on, they move through unaware, and I've broken that down. Each stage has like little stages inside of it and then more stages inside of that. So it's what I've called this. This is also a writing thing. There's this thing called Save the Cat, which is how like screenwriters, it's a beat sheet for screenwriters. So you have to hit these beats in order to write the next Deadpool or The Substance or The Matrix. Like all of these major Hollywood blockbusters can be kind of boiled down to this save the cat beat sheet. And that's what the message matrix is that I have in the copy selling system is this like 36 beats that they have to hit on an assembly line. And that sounds like a lot. People go, 36, holy crap. Well, you're building a customer here. Like you're turning someone into a paying customer. This isn't going to happen in one go. If you think it's going to be in one go, someone lied to you. It's not going to be in one go. It's not two, not three, not four, not five. This is going to take some time. It's going to take some work. You can move them along faster by having a really crisp message that like hits them. And by using those tactics like personalization and segmentation along the way to make that assembly line more efficient for each person moving along it. But you still need to hit these parts. So they're on problem aware. They're going to move through problem aware. You cannot jump them down to the end of the assembly line. It doesn't happen. They're going to move through problem aware. So talking about their problem, creating, really turning that into like agitating it, making them feel it. Most marketers don't. They don't want to do that. Like let's just jump to that happy state they want to be in. Let's do something aspirational for them. And I'm like, cool, how much money do you have? Like that's going to be so expensive versus let's talk about their problems to them. When they're top of funnel, they are problem based. And if they're not, they're probably not a good prospect for you right now. So, especially for small businesses and startups, like this is an easy thing for a small business owner or startup founder to do is to like spend time, block out 6 hours on a weekend to go into that co-working space and map out, okay, when my prospect is problem aware, what are the problems they have? How can I agitate those and bring those to life? Your competitors aren't going to do this. And large organizations aren't doing it either because they want to jump to the aspirational stuff. And problems are for like fear mongering. They're not. That's where the customer is born. So we move them through problem and then we move them into solution aware. So what are the solutions they've tried? They've tried something. They've tried nothing is an attempt at a solution. If I have a headache and I just sit there and go, I'm just going to like power through it, that's me attempting a solution to it. Then I might go look into other solutions like the categories of pharmaceuticals or drinking a lot of water or meditating. So I'm looking into different solutions. We need to move people through those solutions, not introducing them to solutions, but helping them understand the problems in the categories they may be considering, and then building them up to a place where they're ready for your unique contribution to this category. So what is it that you do? And this is where your positioning comes in. So if you've read Obviously Awesome, this is where you'll start like pulling in what April teaches. And then and only then when they've moved through problem aware, then through solution aware, now they're like, okay, I have this bad problem. Okay, I can see that nothing else is going to be the right solution for me. But this is looking like it might be the right solution. What is it? What's it called? Now we're in product awareness. Now you can talk about your product. Now social proof can work in here. It's not going to work out of the gate. You still have to move them through product aware and then get them to most aware. And that's where the buying happens. But you can see just in talking through that, and I know I'm talking a lot, but just in talking through that, there was this whole, like we break it out into these 4 sections. Product and most aware are where the conversions can happen. The first 2 parts of it, you're not going to have anything in there that's like, buy now, here's our offer, come and get it. None of that will happen. And that's the marketing side. That's where marketing lives. And that's what most businesses just skip right past.
Okay, I'm thinking about myself and all the mistakes that, because you get caught up in the weeds, right?
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
make yeah, I definitely don't focus on the pain points enough to really help them understand. Because so what I help people with their systems, but it's really hard from an operations perspective to be like, I can help you with your operations and help smooth things out and make communication easier and more effective. But it's, that value is harder to quantify for people. So I've been over the past, I think 9 months, I've been shifting more towards the customer, helping people with the customer experience, which then often leads to some of that. Okay, well, what are you doing behind the scenes to make this happen? And then they see all the broken systems behind the scenes, which
Okay.
has
Yeah.
been much better for me. But I'm like, as I'm listening to you, I'm like, oh, I don't focus on these pain points enough. I don't put them through these different steps,
Mm.
and I'm missing steps, and I'm like, oh, okay, so that's why it's been harder for me to convey how I can deliver this value because they're not ready to hear that yet.
Yes, exactly. That's the key line. They're not ready to hear that yet. So we
Mm.
have to make sure everybody's ready to hear our message when they do. Now, I say everybody, just big asterisk there. Whenever I say everybody, I don't mean everybody. I mean the people who should be your customers. So really focusing on the right ones in that audience. But that is it, right? And that's why when we look at things that convert well, um, and why long form can convert so well. A webinar can convert like gangbusters. An in-person workshop can convert like gangbusters, right? We've got these longer form things that do because we have time in that to move them through. Here's the problem that brought you here today. Agitate that problem, bring it to life, make it really clear that there's like a thing to battle here. Then we can move them through the solutions they've tried. Does this sound familiar? Have you tried that? Like when we watch these infomercials on TV, they're doing this exact thing. They're just doing it all in one go. The assembly line begins at minute 0 and ends at minute 30. And you've gone through all of those stages. But when we're writing an email, we don't think, where am I in this infomercial? Where am I on that assembly line? You might just jump to, okay, well, we want to get them to this webinar. So what's the webinar about? And then you just write an email that's like about the webinar. But we're not thinking about, okay, wait, the people who are reading this have moved through problem aware. They're in solution aware, but they're not product aware yet. So where are they in solution aware? And if you can just try, and there's a small amount of guessing to it, but so much smaller than what we're currently doing, which is just wholesale guessing. Like just, I don't know,
Mm.
what should we say? I don't know. Moving that down to a little bit of, and this is where you can develop a great hypothesis, which is really good for A/B testing instead of, should we lead with a testimonial, which is like very commonly what people just like come up with for A/B testing, like for an email. Like, should the subject line be in quotation marks or not? That's so tactical. It's out of control. We need to get down to like the strategic side of what do they need to hear right now? Are they ready to hear that yet? So that's the kind of different way to frame and think about the whole marketing experience. Yeah, and what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, I'm as I'm listening to you, they're spurring ideas for myself because I'm like,
Good.
okay, yeah, I need to work on that some more.
Mm,
But you said customer feedback, and that tingled my ears because I've helped clients create customer journey maps. And
love.
often I'll like, hey, I'd like you to do some interviews, and they're like, I don't know, like we're already getting feedback from people. We kind of do that already when we're, a lot of time, like I talk with a client and he's like, they're busy, it's software, and they're like, and he's like, so what we do if they want to leave, we find out why they're leaving. And I was like, okay, that's a small little part of why people actually buy from you. It sounds like you want to jump in, so I'll go ahead.
I mean, there's so many points at which we could be asking people things like our customers, right? So it's really, and I know everybody's like, they're too busy. We don't want to interview people. We don't want to interrupt people with surveys. I get it. I totally get it. Whenever I hire somebody to come in and help us with something, they're like, okay, we're going to survey your audience. I'm like, no, no, no. The last guy surveyed our audience. Like, I can't send a survey every 3 months to these people. Can you just use the existing stuff, please? But that doesn't mean that you don't ever do it, right? Everybody's busy. Be strategic with it. But absolutely, it's just, to me, it feels like so heartbreaking to hear we're just going to do an exit interview or an exit survey. Like, there are these seducible moments along a customer's journey. And as soon as they have taken an action that is real, like I've become a lead by which I have put my email address in and maybe additional information, like even my phone number, that's me in a seducible moment. I've just said yes to you. Most people, when they see that someone has, that's one seducible moment, the other one is becoming a customer. So I've just paid you. Now, a lot of marketers, a lot of sales teams even are like, leave the customer alone the second they become a customer. Like, we don't want them rethinking this, right? We don't want them overthinking
That
anything
was
this
that
time,
I've heard that a lot. Yep, yep.
right? Just
Hmm.
shh, shush, shush, shush. And I'm like, this is the most, they're in love with you. They're never going to be this in love with you again. It's very unlikely they'll ever love you. They're not going to find their aha moment when you think they will. So if you're like, no, they'll love us later, they won't. They'll love you most right now. Now is the time to find out what made them make this call today. Like, why this? Why now? And you can ask. So we ask one simple question that we have a blank in. It was what was going on in your life that brought you to blank today. And I asked this on confirmation pages. So anywhere you have a confirmation page, and if you're like in SaaS and you're driving straight into app, sorry, stop. Have a confirmation page and then drive into app. On the confirmation page, you embed one question survey. What was going on in your life that brought you to want to lose weight? That brought you to manage your projects differently, that whatever that thing is, but you fill in that blank, what was going on in your life that brought you to blank today, and you get the range. This is a moment when people, it's a long form response. People will fill that thing in. They, because it's a seducible moment, because they just said yes to you, they're filled with optimism. They've leapt over this difficult moment of entering their credit card or getting their boss to approve the purchase or whatever that thing might be, getting their family on board with it. I just booked a trip to Disneyland, let's say. What was going on in my life that brought me to do that? I have some stuff to tell you about what was going on in my life. I'll hear that grandma just decided to give the kids this big Christmas gift. You'll hear all sorts of different things in there. And that becomes incredible voice of customer data that you can then use across this customer journey map that you'll have, right? But if you don't ask these questions, you'll never get it. And if you only ask people when they're exiting or when they've been using your product for 3 months and they've forgotten why they signed up in the first place, they forgot all the pain that came before. People love to forget their pain. It's our great, that's why then after, I won't get into it, but we love, there's so many studies about how we love to forget our pain. And so if you can get them right at the moment that they made the call in that confirmation page question, now you've got voice of customer data that can move across the entire customer journey, where they'll talk about the problem that drove them to you. They'll talk about the crappy solutions that they were using before. They'll talk about how excited they are about X feature inside your product, or this cool, they saw that such and such a company left you a really great testimonial. So now you know that that's important. Or they were like, okay, the offer was unmistakable. Like, I couldn't say no to the offer this time. So you've got all of this stuff across the whole journey to help you really have that strong understanding of customers, as well as voice of customer data that you can mirror back to them when you are writing copy going forward, when you're finding your message, when you're figuring out what your positioning is, all of these things that we have to do as marketers, that all comes from asking these questions. I'm a big advocate for asking all.
Oh, I love it. I love the enthusiasm because I think what often happens, you're right, is like, and it was just a couple days ago, my client was like, no, we don't want to follow up because they might be like, why are we using this service? Like, and I was like, no, like that's important. And you should be reaching out. And if they're not using the service, find out why they're not using the service.
Yeah, it's a great moment to ask that. Like, what was the study? It was years ago. There was that study. I think it was when Saturn was still a company, Saturn, the car company. Was it
Mm.
not Saturn? There was a product recall for Saturn cars. Might not have been Saturn, might have been more high end. But they went around, the reps from this car company went to your house to like fix your car manually. I don't know how this happened. It was the 90s maybe. And the net promoter score went through the roof. So they had to do a recall. And yet, when they did the recall, based on how they conducted the recall, NPS scores went way up. So people were more likely, even though they'd been inconvenienced, the way you handled, the way the brand handled it
Mm.
was like so good for retention and for referrals. So like I get where people are coming from because you listen to the one person, you're more often going to listen to that one bad, angry customer, the one person in the webinar who's like, just get to the point. Instead of all people who are like, this is gold. I love this. This is amazing. Thank you so much. You listen to the one negative voice out there and they ruin it, sadly, for everybody else. So then a founder doesn't want to do follow ups or to ask, how's it going, or to do any sorts of check ins because you're worried you're going to get that one guy, that everybody is that one person who
Mhm.
is just going to complain and then cancel or ask for more. And at what cost do we ignore? Do we like, so we're trying to avoid that guy, girl, whoever. And the cost is that we don't talk to any of our customers or we don't do
Mhm.
any of the follow up that could be so not only revealing, but also really good for the brand. And that pays off forever. That's where loyalty
Mm.
is built. Yeah.
So what you're saying too, a lot of the systems we don't have in place, we don't because the fear of what we might hear.
I think when it comes to customers, right? We're so afraid of them. So afraid of them, except for some brands that are clearly that do not project any visible signs of fear of their customers. Apple is obvious. I think Hrefs is another really good example right now of like very vocal, believing in your customers, respecting them enough to tell them real things, that sort of thing. But it's a scare. It takes, takes some guts. You have to
Mm.
believe that your customers are in it with you, and then you have to believe that your product is good enough that people will stick around when they're reminded, oh yeah, I forgot I even had that product, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny because I think it's easier not to face that, right? It's like anything, having a difficult conversation with an employee, your spouse, your kid, whatever. It's like, but when you do and you actually, and it comes out and you hear it, it relieves so much tension and stress because you've been so afraid of actually saying something or asking
Yeah.
that it's like, oh, no, that wasn't so bad. Like, okay, yeah, I can fix that versus like,
Yeah.
no, I don't want to deal with that.
I mean, it's true across the board, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think a lot of what you've done and stuff that we talked about is definitely very copywriting based.
Mm.
But I want to kind of get into a little bit of your leadership style because this is the systematic leader. And I
Oh yeah,
think,
of course, of course.
okay, so from a what is one system you think more leaders should put in place to help them in their business?
Oh, so gosh, the one that more leaders should put in place to help them in their business would be, I would argue, anything to do with customer feedback, by which I also mean lead feedback. So, do you have that system of when X happens, they become a lead, they become a customer. Then we ask them why. Then what do we do with why? Then we circulate that in a Google Sheet, just a Zap, whatever. And then we have a regular meeting for that in which we make decisions about what we will do next. So for us, this has been really critical for us in our business, and it's a great little business that we have. It's a nice 8-figure business, um, and it's we have to keep listening to our customers and applying what we're hearing, largely because of AI and what that has done. So our business is about teaching businesses how to get their message out there and make it stick such that people become happy paying referring customers. Um, but with AI, the changes in the market are daily. Like there's some new release, there's some new AI solution out there. There's so much that we have to learn, and if we don't keep listening and doing something with what we're hearing, which is the biggest thing. Usually when people are listening, it just gets shuffled off to like research. Or some one person out there who's supposedly the advocate, but doesn't really talk about what they're hearing. One person like owns it, and no one else really gets to hear it. But you need to have in that system the mechanism for actually getting your team to do something with it, make different
Mm.
decisions with what you're hearing, not, oh, we heard that. Next. Like, well, what are you doing about it? If we didn't have this in place, we would not be like we've learned in the last year alone that people are so panicked about AI and what it's doing in marketing in particular, and so in search of what to do right at this exact moment that they're not buying on demand training like they used to. And we wouldn't have
Mm.
known that. They're like, great, I signed up for this, but what I'd really like is for you to come up with some live ongoing training for us. And so that's become a whole new product for us in 2026 that we wouldn't have had if we just, asked a question or did some social listening or anything and then didn't take action on it.
I love that. And I think that you're right. It comes back to really listening. And so I guess from an employee perspective, do you have similar systems in place? How many employees do you have?
We have cut down to largely agencies. So I have three core team members now and many agencies.
Okay.
And so, yeah, so no, the team members are just there to manage agencies and freelancers. Yeah.
Okay. So then how do you how do you help lead them so they're getting feedback from these agencies, these people that they're working directly with? Because I think we need to get feedback from customers, but we're also the people that are serving these customers and creating this content and helping with strategy and all this.
Mhm.
Do you have a system or process in place for that?
Yeah, like a few, right? So because we're working with external partners, it's largely marrying what they do with what we need and what we do. And that for me, that means for my team, every Friday they have a template they have to fill out in Slack, and it's pre-loaded in there, so it's scheduled to go out every Friday morning, and they fill in all sorts of details about what the agency did that week and what we learned in that week and what our next action items are based on what we learned. We have a bi-weekly meeting with each of these agencies, and of course we're in Slack with them too. Now Slack is a disaster for anybody who likes systems because it's going to interrupt your life nonstop. So we also have rules around when you should be in Slack and when you should absolutely not be in Slack. But the bigger part is just like obvious the usual things that are do not sound revolutionary, like let's have a meeting, but also let's take notes in the meeting. And more than anything, it's let's always be documenting and discussing what we documented. So I don't let my team use note takers like the Fathom note taker. I They have a pen. They have a pen, and that's part of the system. You got a pen, you got a piece of paper, you have to slow down when you're writing, and that's an important part of the system. Are you Otherwise you're not going to really capture anything. We had Fathom note takers going for 3 years there. And I was like, why does nobody ever have a pen in a meeting? And this is when we had like 12, 15 people on the team too. And nobody was like writing anything down. I'm like, this is why we don't have any action items after anything. This is why we come back next week and go, oh yeah, I didn't do that. Because you're not writing anything down, y'all. So we
Mm.
got rid of the note takers. They're not allowed in meetings. And it's all about handwriting. And until we're going to like move that and document it, I'm pointing over here because that's my Slack monitor. We document it in Slack, and that's an every Friday initiative. And it's not overkill, right? We're not burdened by it. It's just every Friday go through, fill out this template that tells me and the rest of the team what's up, what we can expect differently. And then of course we have team meetings in which we can discuss those things. But it's a very
Mm.
simple system. but it's all we
Hey, simple
need.
systems are the best.
They are the best. I know when we put too many meetings in there or too many like SOPs, even,
Hmm.
people get so worn down by them. And then I
Hmm.
get frustrated as the leader because I'm like, why aren't we doing this? Why do I have this in place if no one's going to do it? And it's like, well, it's too complicated. It's not how people
Yeah.
work. Yeah.
Yeah. And it needs to fit the personality of the team and the
Yes.
objective that you're trying to reach.
Yes, and the people that are on my team right now are so completely different from each other. So it's like we
Mm-hmm.
have to find the right way for it to work for everybody. Even though, one is very like she thinks through everything and she puts it all on the page. And the other, another like he's actually my brother, and he's been with the company for 10 years. And he's just like, he's seen everything, he's been down that path. He knows that, oh yeah, that's obvious. So he doesn't document things. So I have to find a happy medium between person who documents everything, person who just like wings it because he's been doing it for so long. And that's where that one Friday Slack message is everything. Yeah.
Because it helps them think it through and decide what actually needs to be documented and get done.
Yes.
I love that.
Versus guessing.
Okay. I think I forgot to tell you at the beginning. Usually, we finish the interview and we call it a 5 minute system segment.
Okay.
So I have one more question, and then we'll end it, and then we'll do that little separate part. Does that sound good?
Okay.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay. Okay. So, who is one leader from your past that you would like to thank? I know you've been in business for a while,
Yeah.
but it could be a coach, it could be a teacher, it could be a previous boss, somebody you like to thank, and what did you learn from them?
Yeah. For me, it's actually nobody that I've worked with directly. It's Bob Mesta from the Rewired Group. Bobby Mesta is what he goes by now. I've known him since the early days of my business. I met him at Business of Software in 2014, maybe. And he was immediately so generous. I have learned so much about what it means to be like a thought leader who is active in his spaces from Bob. And so, like, I know there's other leaders that I've worked with, but none have really stuck with me so hard where every time I'm around him, I pick up something new, some new way. And a lot of it is about just being really quite generous, being very humble. Bob has written a million books. He's basically the father of the jobs to be done method. Like
Mm,
jobs is everything. And he and Clayton Christensen together brought that to life. Obviously, Clayton Christensen has passed away. And so, like, Bob's the champion of jobs. And you would never, I've been on vacation with this guy. You would never know that he is depended on by the Fortune 100. Like you just wouldn't. And so I've learned so much about like I've known a lot of people who are pretty egotistical, honestly, in business. And if you hang out with too many of those, you become that, I think, and because not because it's bad, but because it's normal. And
mhm.
so with Bob, it's very normal to just be smart and generous at the same time. So he's the leader that I am most proud to call a friend.
That's cool. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many people in our lives that support us in so many different ways.
Yeah.
And to me, I've been trying to be more build a system around thanking people in my life.
Nice.
And
Nice.
it's been so helpful. And it's nice
Oh,
to hear other people talk like that about other people.
yeah.
So that's great.
Excellent.
He sounds like he might be a good fit for the podcast. So maybe someday
Oh,
you could introduce me.
totally. Yeah, I
Okay.
love it. He loves talking, so I'm sure he'd
Okay.
love it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. Where can people go to find out more about you? Check out your book. When does it come out? Your book? Is it?
So pre-orders begin January 2026, and the book itself comes out July 21st, 2026.
Okay. Okay. So we still have, right now it's
Quite a
December. So
lot of
we
time.
have 6 months before.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you.